All right, welcome back. We have some knives here from TRM. Many of you have been encouraging me to review more of their knives or have them in my collection, which, is a big theme of this show, is like, what's in my collection? Why do I keep it? Why do I love it? Why do I use it? Why do I collect it? And so on. So I was kind of excited when the team at TRM reached out and said, hey, we saw one of your videos where you had reviewed an older variant. And let me just move this off screen because I'm not sure what's included here. And would you like to review another one or two or whatever? So I'm not 100% sure what's here. It kind of looks like there might just be one knife, but I thought they said they were going to send two. I said, yes, let's do it. So they sent a Neutron 2, and I believe they're supposed to send like an Atom. So I'm not sure if that'll be in here or not. Looks like it's just the one knife, if I'm feeling that right. A little heavier than I was expecting for its size. It's got some nice substantial feel to it. And they sent some very nice swag here, so thank you for that. Cool patch and a keychain. A sticker with the dog just representing with the knife there. Love it. Let's jump into this first, and then we'll open up what they've sent here. Just get a sense of what's going on. 20 CV blade. This again is the Neutron 2. This is the newer version. I think I had maybe had a Neutron. Ooh. That was quite nice, actually, on one of the videos, which is why they were sending this one. Action's really good. Okay, so far so good. Let's see what we got here on the page. Pull this over to the side and just make sure there's no private information before we get into it. So TRM Neutron 2 liner lock, titanium 3D contoured textured scales. Maybe I'll fold this so we can read it together without my info showing. TRM logo patch, and then the decals and so on. Laser etched logo, 6AL4V titanium, tumble polish finish, 100% made in the USA. All right, let's see. I like to get some of this stuff out of the background because it helps with camera focus. So let's move some of that. Take a look at what we've got. That is an interesting pocket clip. Very tall and then kind of short here. I'm curious if that goes into the pocket easily. It catches a little bit, I gotta say. That's sort of interesting. Like I would probably not have this be quite so tall, and I would have that be a little taller, and I think that would be a little more effective. The knife is very small, very efficient with the space. It's a little flat feeling, and it looks by design, like the tolerance there is extremely narrow. So it's clearly got to be a washer knife. Feels like a washer knife. Is a washer knife. Looks like it's running on phosphor bronze there. The finish is nice. This feels like it's in this kind of, and a nice and centered there. It feels like it's in this kind of space between what's the right term? Like, well, it's interesting because it ends up rocketing out of there really well and actually drops all the way to the nail really easily. So the action's quite good and it rolls out well. Thumb studs are very minimal. I'm not a big fan of this thumb stud design. I prefer one more like this where it's stacked, call it the volcano or whatever. I do find that gets a little better grip, so if it's possible, I'd probably try and change that out, and I think that'd be a little better contact point for me personally, but it works really well. And I like the forward choil. I like how the blade has like a functional sharpening and choke up point there. Like I can grab it here, but I can also choke up more and not feel like I'm gonna get in trouble, potentially cut myself or anything. No jimping across the top. Very parabolic looking. If you're familiar with like a little bit of geometry, is parabola is geometry, or was it trigonometry? The trigonometry? Yeah, trigonometry, right? Very parabolic looking, where like there's a flow of the blade and the handle, it all kind of goes together. So I like that in a way. In a way, it's also a little simplistic for like my design preferences, but it's simple. Like this reminds me a lot of having like a buck knife or something, right? Like it's not one where you look for the action, you just has to have like a lock in the back and stuff, but a more modern fidgety version. But it's very minimalist, I guess, is where I'm going with that, right? Like this is, you know, I would assume these are not milled out. Yeah, just slab titanium standoffs. I can't remember everything about the one that I had, but I'll say this is a much nicer version than the first gen Neutron. It was very, very basic feeling. Pretty much without blade play. Like there might be a twinge there, but it's not like a full click. There might be a twinge of blade play there to achieve probably this drop shuttiness with, you know, a washer knife out of box. That's probably what you got to do. So I could probably tighten that down a little bit. It looks like it's a, sorry about my phone lens is broken. You probably heard that zoom there, or that focus. It looks like, I'd be really curious actually if that's spun or if it's, I just forgot the term when it's fixed. Forgetting the term. So that's cool. This is a T10 on the pivot, and then it looks like you got T6 hardware. You know, CPM 20 CV, all made in the USA. I have to go look at the price point on this. I think it's around 300. Captive pivot's the term, right? Let's see what we got now. Too much. Okay, I think that's about a good balance where I have really no play. It's not going to be quite as drop on the finger as it was, but I'm not a big fan of having play. Just try and back it off a twinge more and see if I still am without any play. Yeah, that's really nice. Now and no play. Okay, cool. So this now has, maybe a touch, but it feels like you can get it to a pretty good spot in terms of the balance between action and, you know, tightness. This is always a challenge with a really narrow handled knife on washers out of box. You're either gonna have to break it in or tune it just perfectly. Probably both. Tune it just perfectly and then break it in. But the action on the opening is really good. Like you can see, I haven't missed it yet. Now I've been doing thumb. Let's take a look at the reverse flick. Not a lot of access on the reverse flick, so I'd kind of like a little more access on the other side potentially, but it's fine. Yeah, the action is good on this guy. Definitely not gravity drop shot or anything, but you can flick it down. The detent seems to be very good. Like just right for the blade weight and everything. I think they did a really nice job on the detent here. Like I'm gonna start giving it weaker and weaker. Like that one I finally failed it, but that was still pretty damn close. There you go. You have to try to fail it, which I love. That's great. Yeah, overall I like it. It's certainly not over-engineered. It's very minimalist. That's the way I would describe this knife. It's very minimalist, looks very slicey. Maybe we can slice some paper here. Ooh, very nice edge on it. Maybe a little. This is pretty damn good. Yeah, very good edge. This is like my ultimate test, is if I can just go straight down onto it. Yep, very good. The grind goes very high up there. It looks like it's flat ground. Yeah, it looks like it's flat ground. And again, I really like this kind of rosy-like choke-up point here. I don't think I showed that, but very few knives do this, where when it's open, the handle and the blade align and give you a really nice grip point. That feels really good to me. So despite being kind of minimalist, it gives you a little more generous feeling on that front finger, which to me is the most important one. Not a lot of hotspot from that pocket clip despite being so tall, which, you know, I think is just an opportunity. I would definitely love to see them. This looks like a very easy one to replace with some alternative, by the way. Looks like you could probably throw maybe typical, it's a little narrower, I guess. But it looks like it would be a very easy pocket clip upgrade if you were to want to do that. But that to me is probably one of the opportunities here for improvement above all else. Yeah, you know, it's a nice little EDC knife. What price point would I feel good about this knife? If this was $199, I'd feel really good about it. I'm not sure. I imagine being made in the USA, it probably costs more than that. It's probably more like, with titanium scales and everything, you know, $300, $350, somewhere in that range. But if it was $199, I'd feel like, for as minimal it is, it'd make it very competitive. Like in terms of comparing that to something like this, the Made in USA by Alex Steingraber, the Lamia. There's a lot more knife here. Comparing it to the Utzler Duck, a lot more knife here. What do I have that's more similar to this? $475 to $375 for most designs. Walter Wells Blade Works, custom made in the USA. Hinderer. But really the one that compares the most to it, but I'm thinking these are the ones for around $400 to $700, $800. You feel like you've got a little more knife. That Hinderer is probably a pretty good comparison, actually. Let's leave that out. Take some of these away, because I'm saying these are much more expensive. So like at $300, you've got a pretty good value. Where I think they get some competition is you start getting into the Benchmades, and now you got a very similar knife. You know, this is a liner lock, of course. Hinderers, a very similar knife. We could throw out the mini bug out. In Spyderco, I feel like that's what they're competing with. From like how the knife feels and looks. These end up being a really good competitive analysis, right? This is like a 20 CV to 20 CV. This is probably also 20 CV. This is 20 CV. Like, those are really good comparisons here, where you're using the same blade steel. The thickness is pretty similar. And I feel like it competes really head to head against these types of knives. I'd like to carry it. I'm gonna go ask them if this is mine or one I can carry and then send back, or if I need to keep it really nice. I'd love to carry it and do a full review of what I think, because there's some things I like about it, but it's definitely very minimalist, and there are things that I like some more about some of these other knives also. But you know, the fact that it's in the conversation with brands like Spyderco, Hinderer, and Benchmade, I think says a lot. And I do feel like this knife is in the conversation with these other knives in particular. They're really good comparables for what I'm feeling here in terms of quality, like blade stock thickness and stuff. It's probably almost exactly the same as the Bug Out. Just feels very narrow there. And obviously this is a price category up, but the Spyderco, again, this is probably an MSRP around 200 bucks, but in a G10, you go titanium on either of these, you're going into that 300 range. So, you know, those are good comparisons head to head, USA made to USA made. I'd say you start getting into this guy, you're in the 375 range, but it's made in Taiwan. More technology here in terms of the shark lock. But these are the knives that I feel like it's really, you know, competing with. You know, another one that's really good to compare it to is like the Tactile Rockwall. In fact, this is probably the most comparable. It's also a liner lock, also made in USA, also titanium. That's a really good comparison. And like, there are things I like more about this, things I like more about that. I like the action a little more on the Tactile. I like the handle a little more, maybe on the TRM, just in terms of like the nice textured tie. They do some nice textured versions of this too. Probably like the liner lock more on the TRM here. This Neutron has a pretty good access point there that they carved out. The liner is a little tough on the finger still. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. It's a little sharp there. Definitely not like the most comfortable I've ever seen. Trying my new technique and failing on zoom. So yeah, interesting. Appreciate TRM sending this in. I'll follow up with them on what the plan is for it. If it's something I can carry, I'll definitely be throwing it in the pocket and seeing what we think. So I think that's all for now. Please like, subscribe, and that'd be for a full review, right? This is just an unboxing and first impressions, but I'd love to be able to do a full review on it if they're good with that. So we'll see what they say. All for now. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.